So let's talk about hypnosis. At a fundamental level, hypnosis is a way of having a conscious conversation with your unconscious mind. Now, I know that sounds a little obscure, and you wonder why you would want to do that. It turns out that our unconscious, which is really our subconscious, I don't like to use the word unconscious because it implies that it's asleep, that it's not aware. And in fact, our subconscious is aware of everything around us all the time. The only time it goes to sleep is for about 10 minutes every night when you're in very, very deep sleep. And it turns out also that we're all suggestible pretty much all the time, but when you're in a more relaxed state of mind, you're more suggestible. So what do I mean by that? So there's this whole school of hypnosis called neuro-linguistic programming. And what neuro-linguistic programming is about is using words and images to either embed or influence your feelings about something. And the most incredibly poignant example of that is direct-to-consumer advertising for drugs on TV. I know you've all seen them. And one of the things that happened when Congress passed this law that said you can do direct-to-consumer advertising is they said, you need to tell people about the side effects. Well, they do that, but they do that while someone is traipsing through the field following butterflies, or having a wonderful meal with their family at the top of a mountain, or taking a balloon ride across the sky. And that's all you remember. You don't remember any of the side effects at all because they've just hypnotized you, just by using images and words. So that's when we're awake. When we're awake and alert, and hopefully we all are right now. Hopefully I haven't put anybody to sleep yet. We're in what's called beta state. And if you look at your brain and measure the electrical activity, the baseline electrical activity is at 32 cycles per second. The number doesn't really matter. What matters is that when we're awake and alert, our brain is at a certain activity level. The next stage is when we're in called alpha state. Alpha is kind of like daydreaming, or you're driving your car, or you're talking to somebody and you realize you just missed like 5 minutes, but you were there, you just weren't completely awake. So alpha state is actually 16 cycles per second. Kind of interesting, the mathematical progression. But the more important thing is that when you're in alpha state, you're more suggestible than you are when you're in beta state. The next level down is called theta. Theta is a brain rhythm that is somewhere between 4 to 8 cycles per second, generally associated with dreaming. But under hypnosis and with someone who's an experienced meditator or a deep meditator, they can meditate in theta state. And in theta state, you're even more suggestible than you are in alpha. The next level down, delta, when your brain goes to sleep for 10 minutes every night, is only 2 cycles per second. And that's probably the only time that you have no awareness of what's going on around you at all. So, what can you do when you're in these relaxed states? So with hypnosis, what you can do is you can change your behavior or reflex patterns to a situation. One of the things you can do. So what we're going to do in a little bit is we're all going to do a hypnosis session that's centered around stress, because we've all got stress, let's face it. Life is stressful, and there's stressful situations, and some people get really freaked out by stress, some people don't, but we all have it in our lives, so I think it's something we can all work on together. So, how does hypnosis help you with stress? Well, it's not just relaxing you, because you have to understand that biochemically inside of us, what's happening when you relax? One of the things that happens with each one of those lower states of consciousness is there's a shift that happens between some really important hormones in your body. One of them is adrenaline, or epinephrine. And that hormone is associated with what's called sympathetic tone. And so that's the one where you're awake and you're alert and you're scanning for threats and you're very focused concentration maybe. But it's also, if you get too much epinephrine, you get into a state called fight or flight, where you can't think rationally anymore. So if somebody is really, really afraid or really, really angry or really, really stressed, they actually can't think rationally anymore. They can't respond to what's going on. They either run away from it or they fight it. By using a post-hypnotic suggestion, we can tell ourselves to lower the level of epinephrine in our brain, which lowers our blood pressure, which lowers our heart rate, and we get calm. Pretty cool. So that's one way it works. So another thing you can do is you can, because what we're doing is having a conscious conversation with that subconscious brain, which is running our bodies. It's telling us to breathe. It manages our heart rate, our blood pressure. It manages our kidneys, our thyroid, dopamine response. All this stuff we don't think about. It just kind of happens in the background. And Western medicine would tell us that we can't impact that consciously. Hypnosis gives us a tool to do that. Now, are there other ways that you can shift your state of consciousness other than hypnosis? Well, yeah, there are. We already talked about one. Meditation can do it. And if anyone's interested, we can talk a little bit about the difference between hypnosis and meditation. But hypnosis is a lot like a guided meditation, if anyone has done one of those or had any experience with that. Are there some other ways you can shift your level of consciousness? Yeah, and we're going to try one of those today. It turns out that if you listen to rhythmic drumming, drumming can induce your brain wave to shift to a different level. Pretty interesting, huh? And it turns out that in virtually every culture of the world, if you go back far enough, tools like drumming or rattles were used to shift people's level of consciousness so that they could interact in that theta state. And we're going to use a drumming track to help all of us, but especially those of us who may have difficulty hearing but still have some vibratory sense, to see if that'll help with shifting your brain state into that more relaxed level of consciousness. You can also do it with some drugs, but I'm not really into that, and some of them are quite dangerous. So I'm not a proponent of using drugs to do that, although you can. And many cultures have done that. So here's another thing, and this is part of how I got into all this. I, as I said, was an emergency physician for over 30 years. Saw a lot of things, saw a lot of people, and I started to realize that what we do in Western medicine is treat symptoms. We don't necessarily understand why anyone gets anything. Other than, you fall off a cliff and you break your arm. Yeah, that's pretty obvious. You fell off the cliff and you broke your arm. Why somebody gets diabetes, though, is a little bit more unclear. Why somebody gets an autoimmune disorder is even more unclear. And so I thought, well, maybe some of these things are perhaps manifestations of post-traumatic stress syndromes. We're all under a lot of stress, and it doesn't necessarily need to be a big trauma to have an impact. We think of post-traumatic stress usually with people that have suffered a significant traumatic event. But there's also people like the folks that work with me in the emergency department that have a really high degree of burnout because of something called microtrauma. And it's an accumulation of microtrauma that we think causes burnout in emergency physicians. And by the way, emergency physicians burn out way more than most physicians. we work in this chaotic environment, and there's no control over it, and there's a lot of reasons for the burnout, but one of this is these micro traumas. So might it be that when you're in a flow state, an alpha state, because when you're in that alpha state is also when you're in the flow for athletes. And when I walked into an emergency department, it was a little bit like I was plugging into a computer. I could hear somebody vomiting down the hall. I was aware of it at some level of my consciousness, right? Now, my wife could tell you that if we're on the other sides of the room from each other, and she says something, I usually don't hear it. But in the ER, I could hear everything. So there was a different brain state there. So remember, you're more suggestible, and those things may have more impact when you're in those flow states. So I thought maybe this is related somehow to post-traumatic stress, and that maybe it would be helpful to help people get into that state to heal some of that post-traumatic stress. So that's kind of how I got here. I know it's a little twisted and a curvy road, but that's sort of it. So once again, how can we use hypnosis? So hypnosis can be used to change behaviors. It can also be used to induce placebo effect. And what I mean by that is, when most people think about placebo effect, they think about if you take a medication, if you believe that it works better, right? And the common knowledge is that it works better just because you believe it. But there's no mechanism behind that. Well, it turns out that what placebo effect actually is that your body is producing the substance that's similar to what you're taking in the pill. And the best example I have for that is for pain medication. So if you give somebody ibuprofen or Motrin, which is one kind of drug that it's called a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory. There's no narcotic in it at all. It doesn't interact with narcotic receptors at all. But if you give somebody naloxone after you've given them ibuprofen or Motrin, you block the placebo effect. You take out 30% of the effect of the drug. What naloxone does is it blocks narcotic receptors. So in response to taking pain medication, your body produces what's called an endogenous or self-made opiate, a narcotic. Pretty amazing. And so with hypnosis, you can induce that placebo effect. So I can hypnotize you, or somebody could hypnotize you, that if you have pain, you could ask your body to produce this stuff. So now we're having that conscious conversation with your unconscious mind. Now we could talk about that a whole lot more, but we only have so much time. So that's just one really good example. Self-hypnosis versus guided hypnosis. We gave the folks that have a difficult time hearing some instructions to do self-hypnosis. And self-hypnosis works quite well for many people. In fact, a lot of people think that all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. It's just that if someone's guiding you, you don't have to remember the suggestions, so you can relax more. So typically people tend to get to a deeper state of deeper hypnotic state and a more suggestible state if someone's guiding them. But self-hypnosis works fairly well. All right, so any questions out there yet? Haven't put anybody to sleep yet. Okay. So what I'd like to do is, now I'm going to talk you through what the stages of a hypnotic induction are. So what we're going to do is we're going to give yourself some physical cues. What I typically do is have people take a couple of deep breaths through their nose, that we're going to start the hypnosis induction. Then we're going to use some other imagery to relax. And then we're going to deepen that relaxation using visualization. Once we do that, And that doesn't actually take very long. I mean, we're talking like maybe 5 to 10 minutes. You'd be very surprised. Once we do that, we're going to go to an even more relaxed state. And then we're going to repeat the post-hypnotic suggestion several times. Most people use 5 to 6. And when I do hypnosis with a client, typically we're working on 2, maybe at the most 3 suggestions in a given session. We're only going to work on 1 today together, and it's going to be about relaxation. And then we'll bring you back from that. So we'll bring you back up to your normal conscious state, and you'll be awake and alert and ready to go on with your day, and you'll feel just fine. Now, for most things, to change a behavior, it takes a while. It took a while to create the behavior in the first place, the response to a situation. And so what I suggest is that if you want to try to really embed this, you listen to the hypnotic, you do the hypnotic induction and listen to the hypnotic suggestion once or twice a day for a while. When I'm working with a client, I usually ask them, because it's usually about something significant, try to do it twice a day for, let's say, 2 weeks and see where you're at. And for most people, that works pretty well. So we're going to find a way to record the hypnotic induction that I'm going to do with all of you guys and have it downloadable from our website, hopefully. At least that's the goal. If not, I'll get you some Google connections to some hypnotic inductions that I have available through that modality. So, any questions? Totally out there up for questions. Can't see you guys that well. Oh, that's better. All right. I know online, I'm trying to see the audience, so no questions. Okay. Hannah, how are we doing for time? We're good. Okay. So, while we do this hypnotic suggestion, I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to have him play a drumming track in the background, and that will help everybody. But I'm going to be interested to see if, in particular, it helps those who have some, if they can feel it, some hearing impairment. So the drumming track lasts a little bit longer than our session, our hypnotic session, but that's fine. So go ahead and cue up the music. Okay, we got the right one. All right, so you're sitting in a fairly comfortable chair, hopefully, somewhere quiet where you're not going to be disturbed. I want you to go ahead and close your eyes. That's okay with you. If not, you can try it out. I want you to take a couple of deep breaths through your nose. Just
was sitting here, right, kind of cramped. My knees are pressing against the seat in front of me. My elbows on these hard armrests. I had my hands like folded, but still like quite tightly folded. But I found that all of a sudden, at the kind of deepest point, like all those however many pressure points I just described, gone. So I couldn't feel the seat pressing on my knees. I couldn't feel my elbows on the armrests or the pressure of my interlocked fingers. So that was all right.
So do you know what an alpha wave stimulator is? An alpha wave stimulator? So it's a device you connect to your ear and it sort of resets your alpha brain waves. And I use it as part of my traumatic brain injury maintenance. And I feel like I just connected myself to that. And what it feels like is you've had a 15 or 20 minute nap, but you also feel a body calm.
Right. So one of the things that can happen when you get into these more relaxed states actually is that you can have some time dilatation. I think Anton said the first time I hypnotized him, it felt like an hour, but it was only 15 minutes. Hopefully it's not an hour. But yeah, so these are just different ways of inducing those brain wave states. And so hypnosis is one way to do that. And simulator is another. Drumming track with 16 cycles per second will also do it. And meditation can do it, although it takes more practice for meditation.
I feel like I just had a 15-minute nap. That felt really good.
Yeah, cool.
And then also I'm curious why you get into a deeper state in a crowd of people versus alone.
Okay, good question. So there's this interesting thing called an induction effect. And you see induction effect with meditation and hypnosis and a lot of mindfulness practices. And it turns out that if you meditate with somebody who's an experienced meditator, you will meditate deeper than you will if you do it on your own. But that same thing tends to happen in a group. So when you have a group that's all focused on the same goal of relaxation, we actually influence each other's ability to reach that. There's a really interesting experiment that was done by a group called the HeartMath Institute out of California. They were very interested in the brain and the heart and the interaction between the two organs. But they were also interested in it because those are the two organs that put out the biggest electrical signals in the body, or the strongest, I should say. So it turns out if you take two people and you put them in an electrically isolated room, so there's no external electrical impulse going in there, you're not putting anything in there. If we do that, the two of us went into that room, my cardiac rhythm, sorry, I just hit the mic, I apologize for everybody not here. My cardiac rhythm will show up in your brain waves. We're not touching, we're just in the same room. And so there is a subtle but real effect when you interact with people. And so there's a lot of pieces to a routine. But we really are greater than the sum of our parts when we're all joined together as one. And so that's part of really why you might be more relaxed doing hypnosis with a group than you will on your own. Although you can connect back to this when you're doing it.
Dr. Friedman, is meditation the same as hypnosis?
So that's one of those interesting nuanced questions that a couple of people have asked me in the last couple of days. So both meditation and hypnosis are shifting your level of consciousness to that more relaxed state of being. Classic meditation, you are just trying to achieve that state and stay there. And there's a actually very healthy for you. So one of the health benefits of meditation is that you're in that parasympathetic state for 15 to 20 minutes later, however long you meditate. Turns out hypnosis will also get you to the same state. Now, the difference though is that with traditional meditation, you're just trying to get in that state and be in that state. With hypnosis, we're going to that state, and then we're trying to change a behavior or make something happen. It might be that we want to be relaxed when I step up on stage and try to talk to you guys, which is always terrifying because I'm always afraid of failing, right? That could be one thing. It could be that I want to control my pain. It could be that, as I've tried, work with some people with Parkinson's about being able to increase their baseline level of dopamine on their own relative to what that they could produce without the medication. So you're trying to achieve a goal with hypnosis typically, whereas with meditation, you're really just trying to get into that state. Now, saying that, when you do hypnosis, you're in that state, and you get the same benefits that you would if you were meditating. So if you did a hypnotic session every day for 15 minutes, you'd also get the benefits of meditation. Good question.
Do you have any tips for the people who can't create imagery in their brain, like can't see pictures?
I've been trying to call. I've been on my own for long enough. Maybe you can show me how to love. Maybe I'm going through a drought. You don't even have to do too much. You can turn me on with just a touch, baby. I look around since city's cold and empty. No one's around to judge me. I can see clearly when you're gone. I said, I'm blinded by the lights. No, I can't sleep until I feel your touch. I said, I'm drowning in the night. Oh, when I'm like this, you're the one I just I'm running out of time, 'cause I can see the sun light up the sky. So I hit the road in overdrive, baby. Oh, the city's cold and empty. No one's around to judge me. I can see clearly
Well, thank you,
when
Dr. B.
you're gone.
My question is how do I know if I fell asleep versus under hypnosis?
I'm blinded by the lights. No, I can sleep until I feel your touch. I said, I'm drowning in the night. Oh, when I'm like this, you're the one I just. I'm just coming back to let you know I can never say it on the phone. They'll never let you go this time.
I like questions.
Dr. Friedman, for people who are diagnosed with ADHD, have a hard time sitting still, being able to position at any time, does hypnosis work? And if not, are there ways for people who do have ADHD to
struggle just to keep my head on. I breathe in, breathe out, and float on like, hey, the stars are all so bright tonight, and hey, everything's gonna be alright. It's gonna get better, better. I know it's gonna get better, better. I know as long as we're together. Oh, I know it's gonna get better. Thinking maybe I should disappear. I've been going crazy 'cause it's been a crazy year. Heaven must have sent you here for me to lean on. I breathe in, breathe out, and float on like, hey, the stars are all so bright tonight, and hey, everything's gonna be alright. It's gonna get better, better. I know it's gonna get better. I've been thinking maybe I should disappear. I've been going crazy 'cause it's been a crazy year. So hold on, it's gonna get better. Hold on, it's gonna get better. Hold on, it's gonna get better. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. It's gonna get better, better. I know it's gonna get better. Get better, hold on, it's gonna get better.
Just about everybody you can hypnotize, and even people that normally aren't very calm.
Don't give up when your heart is weary. Don't give up when your eyes are teary. Don't give up when your voice is trembling. When your life needs mending. Don't give up when the hurt is near you. Don't give up when the world seems to be broken. I'm still hoping with my heart open, for a brighter day. Don't give up when your pride is bruised, and don't give up when you feel you're losing. Don't give up in your darkest hour, 'cause you got that power. Don't give up when you feel divided. Don't give up, I'll be by your side unbroken. I'm still hoping with my heart open, yeah, yeah, for a brighter day.
I have to finish all the food on my plate. And then, you know, you turn 60 and your metabolism goes to shit, and you go, I can't eat as much as I used to. And then you have to try to change that behavior, but I'm still locked into, I'm going to clean the food on my plate. So, but that's a reflex, it's a habit. And by working with your subconscious, you can change that reflex or habit. I'm not saying it's easy, I'm not saying it's instantaneous, but it can be done. And it can make a big difference in people's lives. So hopefully this was helpful to you or interesting. I'm going to put somehow we're going to get a link on there with my contact information if somebody wants to reach out and talk to me about this some more. Happy to work with you. I hope you have a great summit, had a great summit so far, and we'll continue to have a great summit. And remember, we're all here for each other. And so thanks for being here. Take care. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. That was really enlightening. We appreciate you for everything you do for No Barriers. So thank you. Give it up for Dr. Friedman.
Thanks, Sam.
Just a couple of announcements for everyone. If you're hiking with us tomorrow at What's Your Everest, you must be registered. So when you register for the summit online, you were asked if you were going to hike on Sunday. If you said yes, you are registered. If you're unsure or you would still like to register, stop by the info table, please. It's just outside the auditorium. And even if you are registered, upon arrival at the Upper Cookout Pavilion tomorrow morning, you'll still need to check in. So this is our roll call for safety, and we need everyone to sign a waiver. So if you haven't, please do register now. Thank you so much.